within the LA County Sheriff's Department. As you all know and have heard, the disingenuous and disheartening comments made by Sean Kennedy from the Civilian Oversight Commission last week that the sheriff and the Sheriff's Department has done nothing to address their wording deputy gangs. This statement is furthest from the truth. The information we'll provide is factual information on what we have done, and our hope is that this allows us to continue building trust with the communities we serve and to counter the false narrative that has been broadcasted by the OIG and COC. So first slide, next. When Sheriff Villanueva took office, he immediately transferred the captain and the East LA executive team out of East LA Station. This was the first time I've seen this done in my 32.5 years. The sheriff had concern for the leadership and knew a strong command staff needed to be put in place. Throughout 2019, 36 personnel were transferred out of the East LA Station. This does not include the 4 employees that were discharged and 22 employees that received suspensions for the Kennedy Hall investigation. In February 2020, our department implemented a policy stating department personnel should not participate or join in any group or of department employees which promotes conduct that violates the rights of other employees or members of the public. The entire policy is available for you to review, but it's very specific that it will not be tolerated if any of this misconduct involves a crime. If it involves a crime, it will be referred to the district attorney's office for possible prosecution. Also in February 2020, Sheriff Villanueva made a video for department personnel addressing the policy on deputy cliques and subgroups with department members. Again, Sheriff Villanueva was the first sheriff to successfully implement a policy banning deputy cliques and holding our personnel accountable. This was a complete culture change, and now we'll show the video of the sheriff's message, which emphasizes a zero tolerance regarding the policy.
As peace officers, it is our duty to preserve personal credibility, integrity, and not bring discredit to the profession while serving our communities, both on and off duty. This is accomplished in part through professionalism and maintaining positive relationships with our community members. The appearance of membership in cliques or subgroups has had a negative impact on our department's mission and created a negative public perception. This has undermined trust and increased the risk of civil liability. In February of 2020, I approved a department policy which prohibited employees from participating in any clique or subgroup promoting conduct which violated the rights of other employees or members of the public.
Employee groups which violate rights of other employees or members of the public. Department personnel shall not participate or join in any group of department employees which promotes conduct that violates the rights of other employees or members of the public. Participation in these illicit groups, herein referred to as deputy cliques or subgroups, which often include an associated symbol and/or tattoo, harms morale and erodes public trust. These groups undermine the department's goals and can create a negative public perception of the department, increasing the risk of civil liability to the department and involved personnel. Any employee engaging in misconduct of any kind, including but not limited to the use of excessive force or mistreating or harassing others, will be subject to discipline. If the misconduct involves criminal allegations, the matter may be referred to the district attorney's office for possible prosecution. All personnel will be held accountable for this policy. Failure to adhere to this policy may subject violators to discipline.
I want to provide clarity so every employee unmistakably understands. Any employee who aligns with a clique or subgroup which engages in any form of misconduct will be held accountable. I do not want you joining these alleged cliques anymore, period. This is a zero tolerance issue. To those who may have joined these cliques in the past, times have changed and you need to change with them. We cannot go back in time and undo those decisions, but moving forward, we want to better align ourselves with the public's expectations. This is what changing the culture of our organization looks like. From here on out, if anyone feels the need to join, participate in, or solicit others to join any non-approved department sanctioned group, that is unacceptable. Any action we can do to separate ourselves from the perception of these alleged cliques and their association with our department is how we must move forward. Our recognized county counsel has provided a legal opinion indicating there are certain First and Fourth Amendment constitutional issues brought into question when the department takes unwarranted administrative action against individuals with similar tattoos or associations with cliques or subgroups. Contrary to department critics, I have seen no evidence of 3 or more deputies engaging in a criminal activity with a unifying symbol whose primary purpose is to commit crime. The overwhelming majority of deputies who socialize with each other are no different than any other social group in military organizations, sports teams, college fraternities, or even those that unite for a common cause. Tattoos are very common, and their presence is not evidence of any sinister purpose, absent evidence of associative misconduct. Claims of criminal conduct from trial and defense attorneys must be viewed in their proper context. Notwithstanding, all employees are advised to avoid joining cliques and subgroups. It has become clear the community feels department members who associate in these subgroups are wrong in doing so. This issue has driven a wedge between our department and the public we serve. This wedge can serve to delegitimize our department in the eyes of some. Without public trust, we are ineffective in the courageous and difficult work we perform each day. Never lose focus of this fact. We exist to serve others and their needs, not our own.
So next, August 2020, the Kennedy Hall investigation was completed, and Sheriff Villanueva held a press conference announcing the results of this investigation, including termination and suspension of the involved deputies. September 2020, Sheriff Villanueva has a global email sent out to all personnel requesting them to participate in the RAND Corporation study on deputy subgroups. The sheriff and executives encourage deputies to complete the anonymous survey. The email was sent out weekly for approximately 1 month to get the most participants, and this is a copy of the global email. On March 2021, Field Operations Support Services sent a policy rebriefing, which again contained the policy against deputy subgroups and cliques, with a reminder that all employees will be held accountable for any violation of this policy. All unit commanders had their personnel sign a copy of the policy, stating that they read and understood it. September 2021, the Board of Supervisors releases the RAND Corporation report on understanding subgroups within the LA County Sheriff's Department. This report is public and you can review it online. The sheriff sent a message to all department members saying that the report was released and he looks forward to learning about their study, methodologies used, limitations, and seeing how their recommendations can inform the massive reform efforts already underway. The sheriff also held a press conference and responds to the RAND report and discusses reform within the Sheriff's Department. October 2021, public reform legislation AB 958 was signed into law. Sheriff Villanueva was a proud sponsor of this legislation. Our department policy was already consistent with this new law since our policy was implemented in February 2020. We have a summary of Assembly Bill 958 for your review. November 2021, a lawsuit over deputy gangs in the LA County Sheriff's was thrown out of court. The case was dismissed with prejudice due to lack of evidence and absent of triable facts. The sheriff sent a global email to all department members advising them of the results of the lawsuit. February 2022, the Sheriff's Department created a portal for anyone to report any evidence of deputy gangs or employee misconduct within the LA County Sheriff's Department. This is an easy way for anyone to notify us or other entities of any type of misconduct. Now I'd like to introduce Chief April Tardy, who's the Division Chief of Central Patrol Division, who will talk about her experiences in leading Central Division.
Good morning. Again, my name is April Tardy. I'm the chief assigned to Central Patrol Division, which includes both Compton and East Los Angeles Sheriff Stations. Given the sheriff's direction on subgroups, it's important for you to know that I have personally attended briefings, field training officer meetings, and sergeant supervisory school to encourage compliance with the subgroup policy. These are important steps to changing our culture. In addition, we are holding our supervisors accountable to monitor the workplace and encourage our deputies to continue to work hard, rebuild our community relationships, and make good decisions. You are all aware of the Kennedy Hall incident, which occurred on September 2018. The department has taken appropriate administrative actions in which 26 individuals received discipline, ranging from suspension days to discharge. As a result of this case, the policy regarding employee groups was published in February 2020, as previously mentioned by Assistant Sheriff Francisco. Shortly after the policy was enacted, Compton Station personnel were involved in another employee-on-employee incident. This led to the initiation of the very first case involving the new subgroup policy. Almost 200 interviews were conducted regarding subgroup claims. The investigation was returned to me for review, and I realized only the deputy personnel were interviewed. I sent the case back for further investigation to include supervisors and professional staff members. During the investigation, some of the employees admitted to having the new ink tattoo, which was coined executioners, which I first read about in a news article. After my review of the case, I had concerns about the actions of some of our deputies. Due to the status of the station, I felt personnel changes were necessary. I shared my concerns about use of force incidents, lawsuits, and other incidents within the station with Sheriff Villanueva. I told him individuals should be temporarily transferred pending the outcome of the investigation. He gave me his full support. As a result, I moved 11 deputies to non-patrol assignments. Many of those deputies put in permanent transfers to leave the station. The findings of the subgroup investigation was unresolved. Last fall, I had several issues of concern at East LA Station. Again, I met with Sheriff Villanueva and command staff and voiced my concerns and a list of proposed recommendations for them to consider. The recommendations were as follows: immediate transfer of 20 personnel, 10 to 15 initially, then reevaluate the need for more transfers. Discontinue the field training program until the program can be reviewed. More diversity at the station. I'm still working on that piece. Fill every supervisory vacancy for better oversight. Thorough review of risk liability concerns completed by our Risk Management Bureau. These recommendations were appropriate to send a strong, clear message across the department that change is necessary for our organization to move forward. Sheriff Villanueva gave me the green light to move forward with my plan. As a result of my concerns, with the full support of Sheriff Villanueva, I asked 15 employees to transfer from the station and allowed them the opportunity to pick another non-coveted assignment. Within a week, the moves were made. All the deputies remained very professional, with some admitting that they were in need of a change. Important to know that not all those who were asked to leave the station were alleged banditos or associates, but some were moved because they required a change. At the Civilian Oversight Commission hearing on May 24th, an anonymous caller made allegations of a work slowdown which may have impacted response times. I conducted an inquiry of not only the months of the alleged slowdown, but the entire year of 2021, and the data did not substantiate that claim. However, last fall it came to my attention that deputies were hanging around the station and not driving around the communities. This issue was immediately addressed, and one individual was transferred from the station, East Los Angeles Station. For information, a work slowdown is when a deputy only responds to the calls that they're dispatched. The deputy is not taking any proactive police action, such as conducting traffic or pedestrian stops, etc. So a work slowdown does not impact response times typically. Lastly, I initiated another subgroup's administrative investigation at East Los Angeles Station on October 26, 2021. The case is still active. According to a statement I read, this culture has been an issue since 1971. Although this change is not occurring as quickly as some would like for it to happen, it is definitely changing. I am proud of the work the department has done so far as we continue to hold our personnel accountable. And I look forward to working with groups who are truly trying to assist us with this change. I want to publicly thank all my Central Patrol Division staff, commanders, captains, and my personnel for their hard work in this division. It is my desire to ensure compliance with policies and laws regarding subgroups. And I will turn it back over to Assistant Sheriff Francisco.
So we have March 20. So March 2022, the Civilian Oversight Committee announced it was launching a full investigation into deputy gangs. One issue this is the COC and OIG had already launched that investigation in April 2019. In this 3-year investigation, not one gang member was identified or told to the Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff and the department has been accused of not attending COC meetings or meetings with OIG. The Sheriff has met with OIG 4 times. The Sheriff or his command staff have met with COC and the ad hoc committee in excess of 150 times. So this slide is going to show you the comparison between the COC OIG requests. The first one is, or at the bottom will be Sheriff McDonald responses, so 14 responses in his tenure. During Sheriff Villanueva's term, in 2018, 5 requests were made, 1 response was given. In 2019, 43 requests, 43 requests were responded to. 2020, 209 requests, 189 were responded to. 2021 requests, 201 and 179 responses. And to date this year, we've had 75 requests in which we responded 64 times. The numbers aren't 100% because there's certain things that we can't pass over, like active investigations, personnel file, and victim information. So the next slide, these are lawsuits against the LA County Sheriff's Department. During Sheriff McDonald's term, there were 943 lawsuits against LASD, where the sheriff was named as a defendant 142 times, and employee lawsuits is 135. Since Sheriff Alex Villanueva took office, December 2018, we've had 785 lawsuits, which is a 17% drop. He was named as a defendant in 87 of those cases, which is a 39% drop. And lawsuits by employees is 86, which is a 36% drop. This, I believe some of these numbers shows that the reforms that we've put in place are working and that the culture of our department is changing. So next slide. Pre-Sheriff Villanueva, we found 1 article in 2014, which was OIG Max Huntsman's Watchdog New Target Embattled LA County Sheriff's Department. Since Sheriff Villanueva took office, here are just some snippets of articles pertaining to the LA County Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Villanueva specifically, and OIG. This next slide is just a summary of what we've done, what we've covered in the previous slides. Next slide. March 2019, shortly after Sheriff Villanueva took office, Supervisor Hilda Solis made a motion for a comprehensive study of secret Sheriff's Department subgroups. She writes in the motion that this goes back as far as 1971. She had been in office 4 years prior to this motion, and this was never addressed previously. Here's a copy of that. In April 2019, the Civilian Oversight Committee made a motion to direct OIG, working with the Commission, to conduct an inquiry into the existence of secret deputy subgroups and to report back to the COC within 90 days. In June 2019, OIG provides a report, and in this, again, names, no names, or evidence are in this report of actual gang members. October 2020, the COC publishes resolution expressing no confidence in Sheriff Alex Villanueva's leadership and failure to cooperate with the civilian oversight. They also state he should resign immediately. October 2020, OIG released an analysis of a criminal investigation of alleged assaults by the Bandidos. In this analysis, it negates the fact our department completed a thorough investigation which resulted in termination and suspension of employees. Again, we held employees accountable, but we have to let the investigative process take place. In July 2021, OIG reported back to the Board of Supervisors regarding protecting surviving family from law enforcement harassment. Here's the report back. Next slide, a couple of last stats. When Sheriff McDonald was in office, negative board motions were 3. 2 OIG related and 3 COC related. Since Sheriff Villanueva has taken office, 51 negative board motions, which is a 1,700% increase. 34 related to OIG, and 15 are COC related. In closing, I can tell you from the sheriff and every executive on our department, we fully support and embrace advisory groups. We have a vested interest in the relationship, and that is making our department better. We learn from their input, and it is the mission of our department to keep learning and growing from these groups. But when advisory groups turn into activists, they abandon objectivity, which is not a healthy process and not fair to the communities we serve. The COC hearings are inadmissible in a court of law, and there is no neutral hearing officer, so it doesn't give us advice moving forward on how to correct things. So our goal here today was to truly show the amount of work we have done and negate the headlines that the sheriff and the department have done nothing regarding deputy subgroups and cliques. I think you could see that this is the furthest from the truth. We'll open it up to questions.
Why did Sheriff, will the department comply with subpoenas from the COC?
It's up to each individual employee that receives a subpoena.
One of them is the sheriff. He was subpoenaed. Is he going to go to any of these things?
Yeah, I can't speak for the sheriff on that.
But why is he not here today?
I think the sheriff wanted the media and the community to hear from other executives on the department what we're doing. Like the chief, she's actively, intimately involved with her division, and this includes 2 of the stations that most of the media reports on.
The chief, can you speak more to last fall? What was it that sparked your concern once again in East LA?
And are you going to comply with the subpoena on July 1st?
Yes, I plan to supply with the subpoena once I receive it. And some of the issues that sparked some of the attention, like I said, there were use of force incidents, a couple of negative media reports, and at that point I was a little concerned about the status of the station, and I knew that a change needed to be made.
What was the use of force incident?
There were a couple of use of force incidents. I'm sure people are aware of them, which discipline was received, and there were a couple of other incidents at the station involving different personnel. So those issues were addressed.
2 more questions before I turn it to Spanish.
Why was Jefferson Chow instructed not to ask questions about the Bandidos during his ICID investigation into the Kennedy Hall incident? Did that instruction come from Sheriff Villanueva, as it was suggested at the last COC hearing? If so, why did he give that direction? If not, who did and why? And some have said that this amounts to obstruction of justice. Can you respond to that?
I have no idea what instructions were given. This was prior to me becoming commander within the division. I was actually assigned as a station captain at the time. I came in during the finality of the investigation, so I was part of the decision maker.
Right, and you also had a press conference where you announced things like shot callers, and this is what you found at East LA Station.
That's
How did
correct.
you come to those determinations if the investigation didn't look into the banditos in particular?
There were people who were identified, self-identified, during the course of the investigation, and those employees were dealt with.
In the period of time that Alex Villanueva's been sheriff and these investigations into alleged cliques have been going on, have we had any cases to where the sheriff's department has felt it necessary to submit or ask the district attorney to prosecute any deputy for any criminal violation supposedly committed by a gang member, a clique member, something like that? Have there been any prosecutions? Have there been any convictions in that period of time?
No, none to my knowledge, and like I said, I opened up the first case on subgroups, and if we found it necessary for the case to be submitted to the DA's office for filing consideration, then we would do so.
Well, in fact, did you submit any, and did the DA come back with a response, either saying, we'll go ahead with the prosecution, or this doesn't rise to the point where an investigation merits a prosecution?
I answered that question. I have not, and there is, like I said, one case that was done, and I have one that's still pending.
Chief, was it the David Ordaz incident in East LA? Was that one of the use of force incidents?
I'm not sure of the name.
Thank
Can I
you.
ask, Anthony
No more
Blanchard why he
questions.
didn't comply with the subpoena?
No more questions. I'm going to be turning it in Spanish. At the beginning. Buenos días. El señor Sean Kennedy dijo que no hemos sido nada en el departamento. Cuando el sheriff Villanueva tomó cargo en diciembre 2018, hubo cambios significados en la estación en los este de Los Ángeles. Él implementó políticas que prohíben la participación en subgrupos en el departamento que violan los derechos de otros empleados o miembros del público. Cuando tuvo cambios, cuatro fueron terminados, 22 sin pago, y todo el 2019, 36 fueron transferidos a otras estaciones. Esta es una de las pólizas que el sheriff puso para todos los empleados. Él fue el primer sheriff que implementaron una política para prohibir subgrupos en el departamento. En agosto 2020, Sheriff Villanueva anunció la suspensión. The next one. Go ahead, the next one. De 26 miembros del departamento involucrados en el incidente de Kennedy Hall en el este de Los Ángeles. En septiembre de 2020, el departamento realizó una encuesta para que los oficiales dieran su opinión de manera anónima en cuanto a subgrupos. La información fue usada para el estudio RAND. En marzo del 2021, Sheriff Villanueva envió un recordario a todos los oficiales realizando a subgrupos y la cero tolerancia del departamento. Los oficiales del departamento formaron una forma en la cual se recordó al personal que el departamento mantiene cero tolerancia para subgrupos. El 10 de septiembre de 2020 se dieron a conocer las respuestas de la encuesta del estudio RAND. El 22 de septiembre, el sheriff respondió al reporte RAND y discutió las reformas del departamento. El 1 de octubre, Sheriff Villanueva firmó la propuesta el Ley AB 958, el cual establece una conducta para elevar para los oficiales. Este es el sumario de la Ley 958. Había una demanda de pandillas de alguaciles y se bajó por la corte. no había evidencia que esto pasó. En febrero de 2022 se agregó una sección en la página del Internet para que el público reporte la mala conducta de los oficiales y también proporcione evidencia. So, esa es la página de la Internet. So, el sheriff ha estado a las juntas, él o su equipo ejecutivo, exceso de 150 veces. Las demandas entre nuestro departamento, abajo de Sheriff McDonald, eran 9943 y abajo de Sheriff Villanueva es 785. Eso es 17% de bajo. Para defendentes 39% y los empleados 36% de abajo. Antes de él agarró la oficina, él era nomás una. En 2014 es la única que encontramos en las noticias. Pero cuando el sheriff cuando vino, muchos en la media. So, en sumerario, el sheriff ha sido muchas cosas y no es cierto lo que dijo el señor Sean Kennedy, que no ha hecho nada por el departamento. Ha sido muchas cosas. Aquí estuvo el asistente de Sheriff Holly Francisco y Chief April Tardy, y ellos dieron información que el sheriff y el departamento ha sido muchos desde que él estuvo en oficina. Perdón mi español. Preguntas en español. Sí.
Oh, I thought you meant, is anyone reporting for Spanish? I am.
Oh, okay. Gracias. Thank you.